news and events COVID-19 on June 15. Note, this is a collaborative video made between Travel for All Fanpage and Knowledge of Coronavirus channel. Please respectfully welcome everyone. The following is the remarkable news most on June 15 as follows. 1. American news. The U.S. continues to be the country with the highest number of COVID-19 infections and deaths in the world, with 2,161,445 and 117,853 cases, respectively. On June 14, the number of COVID-19 infections and hospital admissions increased to a record in many U.S. states, as most states across the United States were pushing for a full opening of the economy. Reuters statistics show that the state of Alabama, where U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to hold an indoor campaign on June 20, has seen a record high number of new infections in the state. 4 consecutive days up to June 14. Meanwhile, other states such as Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Florida, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and South Carolina all recorded a record number of new infections in the past 3 days. In Louisiana, one of the previous hotspots, the number of new infections has risen to more than 1,200 people, the most since May 21. On June 13 alone, there were 25,000 new infections across the U.S., the highest increase in a Saturday since May 2. Health officials say an increase in COVID-19 cases this may be due in part to the Memorial Day gathering at the end of May and may also be due to a significant increase in the number of tests. The statistics also show that the number of hospitalizations for COVID-19 in some U.S. states has also increased to a record, although this data is not affected by the test rate. States such as Arkansas, North Carolina, Texas, and Utah all had a record number of patients on June 13. In South Carolina, 77% of beds were used to serve COVID-19 patients each area. The figures raise concerns about a second wave of outbreaks as states are preparing to fully open their economies while some states fail to meet the conditions for reopening. Besides, most states will not be able to consider a second closure because they face high unemployment at double digits. 2. Update on the situation of COVID-19 worldwide as of 6 p.m. on June 15. According to the Worldometer statistics page, the world recorded 7,981,567 people infected with COVID-19 acute respiratory infection caused by COVID-19, including 435,159 deaths and 4,103,110 people recover. 3. China news. In China, after weeks of almost no new COVID-19 cases, Beijing has recorded dozens of new cases in recent days. All cases were associated with a new outbreak at the Tanfat wholesale market in southern Beijing. On June 14, the Beijing government requested hospitals to conduct additional screening tests for patients with fever to detect cases of COVID-19. New infections in Beijing are raising concerns about the second wave of infection in China. Beijing authorities have quickly implemented a series of drastic quarantine measures, such as the blockade of some residential areas, wholesale markets, increased testing and isolation of suspected cases. 4. Japanese news. In Japan, Tokyo confirmed 47 new cases, just days after lifting the warning about the increased risk of SARS-CoV-2 infections in Tokyo. This is the first time since May 5 the number of new cases of the day in Tokyo increased to over 40 people. 5. Korean news. South Korean health officials have recorded 34 more cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of cases to 12,085. However, South Korea did not record any additional deaths. 6. Indian news. India is Asia's hotspot, and it recorded 11,382 cases of COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, bringing the total to 333,008, including 9,520 deaths. Thus, the number of cases of COVID-19 and the number of deaths in India has nearly doubled since the beginning of June. 7. Spanish news. On June 14, the Spanish government announced that it would open its borders to countries in the Schengen region of the European Union (EU) starting June 21. Travelers outside the EU or Schengen area will be able to visit Spain from July 1. The Spanish border is currently closed to tourists. Those exempted from the entry ban must carry out a 14-day isolation quarantine to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 disease, an epidemic that has killed more than 27,000 people in the country. The Schengen area, people can freely travel to other countries without a visa, includes most EU countries, Switzerland, Norway, Iceland and Liechtenstein. Starting today, June 15, Schengen's free travel space in Europe has begun to be restored. After the 3-month state of emergency in Spain ends on June 21, the government still encourages wearing a mask in public places until a cure or a vaccine is given for COVID-19. 8. Australian news. In Australia, New South Wales state officials, NSW, announced that they would lift the limit of 50 people at indoor locations such as cafes, pubs, restaurants and churches from July 1 to help restore the post-pandemic economic activity COVID-19. 9. Pakistan news. In Pakistan, Planning Minister Asad Umar warned that the number of 19 infections could double to 300,000 by the end of June and peak with more than 1.2 million infections just a month later if the people of this country still look down on the problem. Umar's warning came amid many Pakistanis who continued to ignore instructions on social spacing, hygiene and other measures to cope with the disease. Pakistan currently records nearly 139,230 cases of COVID-19, including 2,632 deaths, while the number of new cases continues to increase rapidly, with more than 6,000 cases being recorded. Officials have stepped up testing, but Pakistan's testing capacity is still limited, so the actual number of COVID-19 is thought to be higher. Initially, Pakistan and South Asian countries had lower rates of infection than Western countries, but the number of infections in these countries is increasing rapidly. The high number of cases in Pakistan is due to people violating government restrictions, as well as crowds at temples and markets, mostly without masks and gloves, in Ramadan, as well as before Eid last month. 10. News of Egypt. The Egyptian Ministry of Health reported an additional 1,618 cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of cases to 44,598. Notably, the number of patients killed by this dangerous disease increased by 91 cases, marking a record high number of deaths per day and bringing the total number of deaths to 1,575. According to Egyptian Health Ministry spokesman Khaled Mega, the number of patients discharged on the same day was 402, bringing the total number of patients cured to 11,931. 11. Vietnam news. In Vietnam, there have been no cases of infection recorded in the community for 2 months, with 334 cases reported to date, of which 323 patients were declared cured. Of the remaining 11 patients being treated, 4 patients had negative results for COVID-19 from one time or more. 12. Iran news. In Iran, authorities have recorded an additional 107 deaths due to COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of deaths due to COVID-19 to 8,837. This is the first time in 2 months that Iran has reported more than 100 new deaths in a day. Iran recorded an additional 2,472 cases in the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 187,427. Our newsletter is now over. Thank you for always watching and supporting our videos. Knowledge of Coronavirus, Channel and Travel for All fanpage respectfully, and see you in the next video.